to start with a ghost story.
Oh.
But don't worry, it's not about a haunted house or, a creepy doll. It's about a haunted skill.
Okay. You definitely got my attention. A haunted skill.
Yeah. Picture this, and I know everyone listening has been here. You're in a workshop, a lecture hall, maybe just watching a tutorial online.
Mm-hmm.
The speaker is charismatic, the slides look great, the logic is just flawless, and you're sitting there nodding along thinking, yes, I get this. This makes total sense.
The glow of understanding. I know it well.
Exactly. You walk out of that room feeling like a genius, but then, maybe 2 weeks later, or worse, when you're sitting in front of the exam,
Oh, no.
you reach for that information, and it's a ghost. It's just gone. You recognize the shape of it, but you can't actually do anything with it.
We've all been there. It's that terrifying gap between just recognizing something and actually being able to use it.
And we always blame ourselves, right? We think, oh, I must have zoned out, or I'm just not wired for this subject. But the research we're diving into today suggests something completely different. It suggests that feeling of smooth understanding isn't a sign that you're learning.
In fact, these sources argue it might be a sign that you aren't learning.
Which is such a wild claim. It goes against everything we think a good class should be. But that's the mission for this deep dive. We're unpacking a concept called the cognitive inversion.
Right.
The basic premise is that the way our education system is designed, from kindergarten all the way to corporate training, is the complete opposite of how the human brain actually biologically encodes memory.
It's a systemic mismatch.
Yeah.
Essentially, the argument is that school teaches learning backwards.
So let's get into that intuitive trap, the one the source calls the straight line fallacy, because I feel like this is the default setting for how we all think education works.
It really is. It's the mental model that governs almost every classroom.
Yeah.
We see learning as this linear, almost industrial process.
Like a conveyor belt.
Exactly, conveyor belt. Step one is information. The teacher presents the facts clearly.
Okay.
And if the information is good, well, then understanding happens. And if understanding happens, a memory is formed.
Which leads to ability.
A straight line. Information to understanding to memory to ability.
It sounds so logical, and in that model, the enemy, the villain, is confusion.
Exactly. In the straight line model, a good teacher is someone who removes all the obstacles. They smooth out the road so you never hit a bump.
It's sort of a customer service approach to education, right? How can I make this as painless as possible for you?
And if that transaction fails, if the line breaks, someone has to be blamed.
It's either the teacher explained it poorly or you, the student, were lazy.
It's a binary blame game.
But here's what I found so interesting, and maybe why we defend this model so hard.
Yeah.
We buy into it because it feels true in other parts of our life. Like if I ask you for driving directions, I want a straight line.
Right. If you ask me how to get to the airport and I give you a riddle, or I say just drive west until you feel the vibe of an airplane, I'm being a jerk.
Exactly.
In those kinds of tasks, clarity equals success. And we just assume the same logic applies to our neurons. We think, if I could just give you the clear path, your brain will store it.
But schools have another reason for loving this model, don't they? It's not just about being helpful, it's logistical.
This is the cynical but really necessary part of the analysis. Schools are massive logistical operations. They need schedules, they need grades, they need to move bodies through a system.
Chaos waiting to happen.
Totally. You can't put 2:00 p.m. Everyone struggles and stares at the wall in silence on a syllabus.
Oh.
Parents would freak out.
You can't schedule an epiphany.
You can't. But you can schedule a lecture.
Yeah.
You can schedule delivery. So the whole system biases toward what's measurable. We covered the Civil War on Tuesday. Check. We covered photosynthesis on Wednesday. Check.
It reminds me of that old joke, I taught my dog to whistle.
Oh, I know this one.
And the other person says, but he isn't whistling. And the first person says, I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it.
That is literally the delivery model in a nutshell.
Yeah.
We measure the input, the teaching, because measuring the real output, the learning, is messy. And this creates what the source calls the cognitive inversion.
Mistaking exposure for learning.
Yes.
Let's drill down on that because this is the real heart of it. Why doesn't exposure work? If I sit through a brilliant lecture, I understand every word. Why doesn't it stick?
You feel like it is, but you have to understand the biology. Your brain is an evolutionary miser. I mean, it is incredibly cheap when it comes to energy. It doesn't want to store information.
It's basically Marie Kondoing my thoughts before I even have them.
Pretty much. If your brain remembered every license plate you saw on your commute, you'd go insane. You couldn't function.
So the default setting for the brain is just delete.
Correct. Most input is treated as noise. The brain only saves what it thinks is vital for survival. And here's the kicker, the part that just ruins the straight line fallacy. Ease of understanding is not a survival signal.
Wait, really? I would think if something is clear, the brain would say, oh, nice, let's keep that.
It's the opposite. If something is easy to process, the brain often thinks, oh, I see that. It's simple. No need to spend energy building a complex neural pathway for this. It's obvious.
It takes it for granted.
Exactly. And this explains the fluency illusion. The source spends a lot of time on this, and it explains so much of my own, academic history.
The fluency illusion, is that what happens in, math class?
That's the classic example.
Yeah.
A math teacher solves a complex equation on the whiteboard. Step 1, step 2, step 3, solution. You watch it and you think, yeah, that makes sense. I see where that X went.
But you're not doing the math. You're just recognizing the logic as it happens.
You are becoming fluent in the solution, but you aren't generating it yourself. You're following a guide dog. You feel like you know the way, but if the dog runs off, you are completely lost.
And that leads to what the text calls invisible failure, which sounds pretty ominous.
It's invisible because everyone feels good in the moment. The teacher feels great because the class is nodding along. The students feel great because they aren't confused.
Right.
The failure is completely masked until the scaffolding is removed, usually during the test.
The system is almost gaslighting us. It tells us we're learning, but we're just watching a movie about learning.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So if exposure isn't the signal to the brain to hate save, what is? What is the actual save button for the human brain?
This brings us to the logic of reconstruction. The source uses a phrase I absolutely love. It's, memory is not a record, it is a prediction.
Unpack that for me. Memory is a prediction. That sounds like something out of science fiction.
Well, we tend to think of memory like a file cabinet. You put the file in, you take the file out. But biologically, memory is a reconstruction of the past that we use to predict the future.
Okay.
The brain only encodes information that it predicts you will need to use again.
So how do I convince my brain that I need to know the capital of Nebraska or the syntax for a Python loop?
You have to send a distress signal.
It's a stress signal.
You have to prove to the brain that this information is necessary to avoid, pain or frustration. And the signal for importance is effortful reconstruction.
Effortful reconstruction. So the struggle itself is the signal.
Precisely. It's that moment when you're trying to remember a colleague's name. It starts with a J. You're searching, you're frustrated.
That burning feeling on the tip of your tongue.
Yes, that specific feeling of struggle, that is the brain marking that data as high priority.
So the frustration isn't a sign that I'm failing to learn. The frustration is the learning.
Yes, and this is the pivot point. In the straight line model, clarity comes first. In the biological model, true clarity is the result of the struggle.
There is a quote in our notes that really stuck with me. Learning is not smooth accumulation. It is repeated reorganization.
It's messy. Think about building a muscle. You don't build muscle by watching someone else lift weights.
Right, or by lifting a styrofoam weight that's easy.
You build it by tearing the fibers.
Yeah.
You stress the muscle, there are micro tears, and the body repairs them stronger. Learning is the same. You have to tear the neural pathway by trying to retrieve the memory, failing, and then reconstructing it.
This makes so much sense of my own bad study habits. I used to be a chronic highlighter.
Oh, the highlighter.
I'd read a textbook, highlight the important stuff, and think, okay, I've processed this.
Highlighting is the ultimate straight line activity. It feels so productive, it looks like work. But usually it's just passive recognition. You're not reconstructing anything.
Kind of just decorating my ignorance.
That's a harsh way to put it, but
yeah.
To actually learn that text, you'd have to close the book, stare at a blank wall and ask, okay, what were the 3 main points of that chapter? And force yourself to pull them out of the void.
And that feels terrible. It feels slow and awkward.
And that awkwardness is the whole point. That struggle tells your brain, wow, we almost lost that. Better reinforce that connection. If you just reread the highlights, your brain goes, oh, there it is. I recognize it. No work needed.
So we have this massive conflict. The school system is optimized for delivery, but the brain is optimized for reconstruction. What does that mismatch do to us psychologically? Because I feel like there's a heavy emotional toll here.
There is. And this is where it gets really damaging. Because we're raised in this system, we internalize the wrong metrics. We start to believe that struggle equals stupidity.
I see this all the time. If a kid is confused in math class, they don't think, oh, I'm in the process of learning. They think, I'm bad at math.
Right. The source puts it beautifully. Success feels like luck. Failure feels like exposure.
Wow.
When a student glides through a lesson, it feels flimsy because deep down they know they didn't really build it. But when they hit a wall, they feel like they've been found out. Like, oh no, everyone sees I don't get it.
It creates a fixed mindset. You start avoiding that struggle zone because it threatens your identity.
And you lose trust in your own internal signals. We get addicted to the sugar rush of easy clarity. We want the 5-minute YouTube video that simplifies everything. We chase that aha feeling, even though it usually fades in an hour.
We're addicted to the illusion of competence while avoiding the actual work of competence.
Exactly. It's a kind of learned helplessness.
This brings us to the unifying model the source presents. It boils this whole thing down to one sentence, really. School optimizes for delivery. The brain optimizes for reconstruction.
That's the core conflict. Delivery is visible and manageable. It moves from clarity to memory. It minimizes struggle to keep things moving.
And reconstruction.
It moves the opposite way, from uncertainty to structure. It requires the struggle. And for a school, that's a problem because reconstruction is invisible. You can't look at a student staring at a wall and know if they're daydreaming or engaging in deep neural reconstruction.
It's totally unschedulable.
So the system defaults to what it can control. Delivery.
This reframes so many of my own past failures. I remember failing a chemistry final. I went to every lecture, I had the notes, I was a model student, and I just felt betrayed.
You were a reconstruction engine, stuck in a delivery world. You weren't broken, you were just operating on a different OS than the school was.
And it's important to say, right, there are no villains here. This isn't some conspiracy by teachers.
Not at all. Teachers are trapped in this too. Imagine a teacher who tried to teach by reconstruction. They give a vague prompt, let the students flail for an hour, refuse to give clear answers.
The students would revolt. The parents would call the principal, why isn't this teacher teaching?
Exactly. The teacher would be penalized for a lack of clarity, even if those students ended up with a much deeper understanding months later. The system demands the performance of teaching.
Which gets in the way of the reality of learning. So let's pivot to the listener. We can't fix the school system overnight, but how do we break this habit in our own lives? How do we stop learning backwards?
You have to change what you value. You have to stop looking for that smooth feeling and start looking for the friction. You need to seek out what researchers call desirable difficulty.
Desirable difficulty? That sounds like a paradox.
It means you want the task to be hard enough to trigger reconstruction, but not so hard that you just give up.
Give me a concrete example. Let's say I'm learning a new software tool for work.
Okay. The delivery approach, the bad approach, would be watching a 2-hour tutorial from start to finish.
Which results in me staring at a blank screen, forgetting where the file menu is. I know that feeling so well.
Right. The reconstruction approach is different. You watch maybe 5 minutes. Then you turn off the video, you open the software, and you try to do the thing you just saw. And you will fail.
And normally, that's when I'd immediately tab back to the video to relieve that tension.
Don't. Sit with it. Try to click around. Try to logically guess where the function should be. Force your brain to dig for the answer. That 30 seconds of struggle is worth hours of video watching.
Even if I don't find it.
Even if you eventually have to look it up, the act of struggling primes the brain. It digs the hole so that when you do drop the answer in, it actually stays there.
So it changes the definition of studying. Studying isn't input. Studying is retrieval.
I tell people, if you aren't sweating a little bit, mentally speaking, you aren't learning. If your study session feels relaxing like a warm bath, you're probably just reviewing what you already know.
It's empowering, though. It means that feeling of, I'm stupid because this is hard, is a lie. The truth is, this is hard, therefore I am learning.
That is the mantra. Struggle is not the enemy. Struggle is the mechanism.
This deep dive has really shifted my perspective. We've unpacked the straight line fallacy, the danger of passive exposure, and the absolute necessity of reconstruction.
It's a lot to take in, but if you only take away one thing, it's this. Stop trusting the feeling of ease. Real learning leaves a mark.
Before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with a final thought from the source material. It's a bit of a provocation. We've talked about how we judge ourselves, but what about how we judge the people who teach us?
It's a tough question. If we accept that struggle is the essential ingredient, is our definition of a good teacher completely wrong?
We usually think the best teacher is the one who explains things so clearly that we never get confused.
we give them 5 stars.
Yeah. But if that hyper-clarity prevents us from doing the reconstruction work,
Then the most helpful explanation might actually be the one that hurts your long-term attention the most. Perhaps the best thing a mentor can do is not explain it clearly right away. Maybe they should let you stumble in the dark for a little bit.
a terrifying thought for every teacher and every student out there, but maybe the most important one. Thank you for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure to struggle through it with you.
Keep struggling, keep reconstructing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.